On today's show, it's NHL Draft Week, which got us thinking what would be considered a successful one for the Ottawa Senators.
And we've reached the peak of our 2025 NHL Draft Rankings. We got our top 3 ranked players today.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Monday, June 23rd, and Pillsy, we got a great reminder this morning about why you should not have hot, negative takes on draft weekend.
I mean, which reminder are you referring to? There's countless reminders that, hey, if you think you have a very strong opinion on a 17 or 18-year-old, maybe cool it down a little bit before going public with it, because that could blow up in your face big time.
Everyone remembers who you are as well. Just like we remember all the Leaf fans that said, ha ha, I can't believe that they gave up 2 second-round picks to move up and draft Tyler Kleven. Well, Tyler Kleven signed an NHL contract this offseason, and both Maple Leafs players, who I heard were going to be future Hall of Famers, will be playing in Europe after Topi Niemela signed a contract overseas. So that's the end of that story. You can flush that one down the toilet if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. But all jokes aside, it is a fun week for transactions and giving that immediate reaction. Of course, you're going to have strong opinions. You're a diehard hockey fan, but it's all about, seeing it play out. So I'm not telling people not to have strong negative takes on draft weekend. I'm just saying buyer beware, because it could come back and bite you, and everyone will let you know as often as possible.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you can't have strong takes either, but if you have a really, really strong take, tone it down just a little for public consumption, I would say. Because then even if you're right, you can be like, well, actually, I had a stronger opinion about it, but I didn't say it. But then if you're wrong, you cover your back a little.
Yeah, save it for the group chat, and then you can put it in a separate message once you're already right and be like, hey, look, I was right. Trick of the trade there, Pillsy. Yeah. But we asked a question right off the top of the show. Maybe we didn't, but I'll ask it now, just like I did on Twitter. What would be a successful draft week for the Ottawa Senators? They hold the 21st overall pick. They've got unrestricted free agent Claude Giroux still negotiating a contract. He wants to stay. They want him, but you got to figure out how the dollars make sense. And then they've got to improve their roster at the same time. So how much of that needs to get done by the end of this week going in to free agency next Tuesday?
Claude Giroux's got to get done. If Claude Giroux's not done, then the panic meter starts to get going for me that he might leave, because then you're going to have other suitors making offers to him. Right now, it's just the Ottawa Senators. I mean, I'm sure there's behind closed doors and conversations not happening on text or email, anything that can be time-stamped and screenshot, talks to Claude Giroux. I'm sure that is happening, but for now, the Ottawa Senators are the front runners to keep Claude Giroux. But if it gets to UFA, then you're looking at a situation where there's obviously a serious disconnect between the two teams. And it's Claude Giroux saying, well, I didn't love what I was hearing from the Sens, so now I'd like to at least hear my options, or maybe these competitive offers will help bring the Sens to where I want them to be with their offer.
Yes, this could be a deal that gets done right before July 1st. We talked about how busy his agent, Pat Brisson, is with the outrageously bonus-heavy contract Jonathan Toews signed. Well, Pat Brisson also negotiates on behalf of John Tavares, who is not close, reports say, to a contract extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So this is also the time of year of deception and insider knowledge. And Elliot Friedman tweets this morning that talks are heating up around Trevor Zegras, who is not a fit in Ottawa. Let's get that out there right away. But don't you feel like when Elliot Friedman says that, there's usually a trade within 25 minutes?
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked, Ross, if something happens today. By the time you're listening to this, it might have already happened. I got to think Montreal is the front runner. Like, he's been tied to Montreal for so long. It makes sense. They have the type of assets that the Anaheim Ducks would want. So surely I could see a deal being made there. And I wouldn't be that upset about it, to be honest. I'm not a huge Trevor Zegras guy. I respect what he can do, but I'm glad that Ottawa's not in the mix for that. I'll just say that.
Some people call him a TikTok hockey player. Like, he's got the highlight reel. If you put him on for a 30, 40-second reel, woo, he's nasty. But the game's played in between the blue lines as well and in your own zone. To bring it back to Ottawa there, you mentioned Montreal. Bruce Garriock did throw out that possibility that if Claude Giroux got to July 1st, that Montreal would have interest. And that would be salt in the wound.
I don't think Claude wouldn't go anywhere else, right? I think either he's staying in Ottawa or he's going to Montreal.
No, you don't think he's going to Buffalo?
No, I don't.
So if it is a bonus heavy contract, you would expect that to keep the AAV down. The 1-year cap hit has to be a 1-year contract for there to be performance bonuses included in the 35 plus contract for Claude Giroux. So if and when that gets done, let's now look at the draft itself. How can Ottawa leave this draft feeling better about their prospect pool than they do now? I know you advocated right when the announcement came out that they were keeping their pick this year, that maybe trading down could be a scenario where you then add more draft capital and have more opportunities to take swings and add that difference maker prospect in the pool that some would say is lacking a little bit beyond Stephen Halliday and Carter Yakimchuk right now.
Yeah, I just think, Ross, if you're the Ottawa Senators, you got to look at recent history where their lists do not match up with every single other team and every single other online scout and anyone that does any draft coverage. It seems the Ottawa Senators are much higher on players than other teams are. And you need to realize that and think, okay, we can move back a couple picks, gain an asset in that process and still get our guy. Like, I don't want them reaching on a player that, sure, you may love this guy, but you have to be able to predict, or not assume, but you have to have an understanding of where the rest of the teams around you, where their lists are and who they're targeting. I just don't want them to reach on a guy that they could have got a couple picks back if they traded back, and maybe they need to be able to capitalize on other teams looking at guys in that range and they're eager to trade up. I don't know if it's going to happen. I feel like making those work is very complicated because you have to know who's there, what guys want, and then you have to decide what's appropriate value to trade up or trade down a couple picks. But that's something that for the Ottawa Senators, I feel like could make sense. If we look back at the last couple of high picks they've made, it almost seems like they didn't need to draft them at that position, and trading back wouldn't make sense.
It's interesting because historically the Senators have made a lot of those either trade up or trade down moves in the second round, but not in the first.
When's the last time they traded down? I can't think of a single time.
Well, I can tell you it was 2021. Didn't they trade down a couple spots for the Ben Roger pick? They could have traded down to a 7th round pick.
Yeah, okay. I don't remember that one, but I do. They have had a history of trading up. Like, that's been common for them. For Sogard, Clevin.
Those are the two that I was going to say right off the top of my head as well. They've also traded picks for NHL talent. And if I gave you the list of those recently, it probably wouldn't impress you. And I'm not just talking about the DeBrincat and the Chikrin one. The one that which one stands out to you? 3, 2, 1? 3, 2, 1. Derek Stepan.
Okay, I was going to go, I was racking my brain a different way. I was going to say, Ross, the amount of picks they've traded away to get rid of players.
Yes.
Zaitsev, Murray.
Yeah. Well, Well, they also traded picks to get Murray in 2020 and traded picks to get rid of him in 2022. Like, literally 2 years later.
Yeah, not good.
Yikes. Was that 23? Whatever it was too long for him to be an Ottawa Senator. But let's focus here. In a concise way, a successful week for the Ottawa Senators is
re-signing Claude Giroux, top priority. I'll word it this way, not reaching on their first round pick at 21. And 3, those are the top 2. I don't really have a third. Do you?
Nah, I think if you can add depth, I think on the back end, doing it through trade might be a better way to go than to get into a bidding war for a depth defenseman where we see free agents get the extra term. I want as much flexibility as possible with that depth rotation. If you're going to say basically it's a guy who can come in for Nick Matt-Paolo whenever you need him in a lineup. So that would be my hope. Maybe an RFA, maybe a guy like Sam Malinsky, a name I keep mentioning, but to get that done and then give him a 1 or a 2-year contract, at most 2 years for a bottom pair defense. And with the way things are right now lined up, I think that would be a considerable move that the Senators could make to improve their team. But if there's a home run swing, a blockbuster trade, one of these high value players that we keep hearing the Senators are kicking tires on, I don't think that necessarily means it's a better weekend. It might be a better content weekend, but a better weekend for the overall Ottawa Senators organization than if they just take care of the draft. I think the most important thing the Senators can do this week is nail their first round pick. Nail it. Whether you move back, move up, make the pick at 21, that to me is more important than even signing Claude Giroux because the prospect pool needs that help.
I don't want them moving up.
Claude Giroux. Okay.
There's no scenario where moving up makes sense for me.
Well, later this week, we're going to get into our draft targets. We're going to get into our draft list as after we wrap up our overall scout top 50 countdown as we average out our top 7 scouts and make those our numbers. Pillsy and I have been working on our list throughout. Every time we do our profiles, we then kind of add them in up or down. Where are we moving things? It's a living, breathing organism, as Senators Chief Scout Don Boyd says. And I've been really struggling with a few of these picks. Like making lists is hard.
It's hard. Yeah, absolutely. And one more thing I want to mention, Ross. It's interesting to note we've had no NHL buyouts. I would have thought we would have had a couple. Instead, what teams are doing is
one. TJ Brody is on waivers for buyout.
Oh, okay.
With Chicago. That's the only one though.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. What teams are doing instead are trading salaries for cheap. We saw a Marchment deal, and then we saw Burakovsky traded for Joe Veleno. Like the teams are really trying to focus on not using that buyout, not handcuffing them. And I think pretty much unanimously, Sens fans that heard our episode about possibly buying out David Perron all said, not a good idea. Don't do it. I tend to agree. I was more just trying to shed light on the fact that some teams and some organizations have no issue doing cutthroat things to make their team better if they think they're in a chance to win. But I do agree. I don't think a buyout makes sense for the Ottawa Senators right now. And I like David Perron, what he brings to this team. I just was having a hard time fitting him into the lineup. And I think that's where if you do re-sign Claude Giroux, it's kind of an awkward position having both those guys.
And we will have a full audit on the Senators organization. We've got a color-coded depth chart that we'll introduce later this week as well to kind of get you reset right before the biggest transactional period in the National Hockey League. For up-to-the-minute information, go check us out on Twitter at Sens Central. You can find the show wherever you get podcasts, free and available on YouTube. Shout out to the everydayers making us your first listen. The mock draft still live. Second most viewed video all time in LOSP YouTube history. We appreciate everybody who's checked that out, who shared with a friend, who's gone back and watched certain parts of it over again, and leave a comment below. It does help grow the show. So thank you very much for that. It's a labor of love, and it's great to see that the reception is good. On the other side, these players are good. The top 3 in this year's NHL draft, and we talked about the uncertainty, the volatility at the top of the draft. Well, 1, 2, 3 might be locked in, and we'll tell you why next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Are you guys looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? A dual threat snack? Ross is getting into them right now. Ross, what flavor you got there? I already know the answer.
I always go lightly salted, and people might think I have one a day and I just have this bag on my office forever. I got a 6-pack last time I went to the grocery store, and I have just been working my way through. I love the shells variety. I love how you can actually open them up. It's almost like, hey, you're burning a couple calories on the way to getting that high protein nut, and then the protein's going to help my muscles rebuild after. So I'm a big fan of the oysters of the tree, these wonderful pistachios, appropriately named because these things are delicious.
And it's not just the protein, Ross. Don't forget about the fiber and the better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I'm a salt and pepper guy, the light purple bag. But if you don't want to deal with the shells, they got the no shells variety, perfect for grab and go days, whether you're snacking at your desk during the podcast, on a road trip to Ottawa, or you just need a quick protein boost. They're always a clutch go-to. So get snacking.
Blend them up and put them on a salad.
Oh,
big play.
All right, there you go. So get snacking, get cracking, and get blending with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
All right, Pilsy, we're knee-deep in NHL draft content. The Ottawa Senators with a big week ahead, as is a big week for 32 kids who will get their name called on Friday night, the first round of the National Hockey League draft. The draft will take place in Los Angeles. It will be decentralized, so we're going to have the War Room videos coming in from all across the league. We're going to have PR reps from each team go and tell the league who the selection is. I'm really interested to see how this looks on television for round one, which means we will have our daily episode on Friday morning. Then we will have another episode on Friday night. We will be releasing an extra episode right after the first round of the draft to break down everything that's going on. And keep an eye on our YouTube and socials for shorts when the Senators do make moves in between. But then, Pilsy, Saturday, after we've already watched the broadcast, which, by the way, Tim Whalen pointing out that the NHL draft first round broadcast is shorter than our mock draft.
Yeah.
Hilarious. But for day two, where can you find us on Saturday?
We're going to be live streaming on day two on YouTube. This is something we haven't done before during the draft. So I know the day two draft coverage doesn't have the glitz and glamour and the flair. It's more just kind of flipping through picks. So if you want a little more deeper insight, if you want to see our faces, hear us talk about it, and have some special guests, we're working on lining up some special guests to bring some vibes and some fun to the stream. Check us out. We're going to be doing it pretty much till we feel like we've gotten everything covered, Ross. We don't really have a set time for our live stream.
I think we should go until at least the Senators' final pick in the draft. And we got a 7th round pick, buddy.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right.
So we will be live streaming until at least pick 213 when the Senators wrap up this baby. But again, it's not going to be a pick by pick analysis at that point. It's just going to be good, fun conversation. We may be lining up some of the Senators' top prospects. We may be lining up some of the analysts who not only cover the Senators, but we're going to look around Canada. We're going to look around the Atlantic Division, and we're really looking forward to doing that on Saturday. The live stream, I believe, will begin at 11:30. We're still working on an exact start time, but the draft day two begins at noon Eastern time. So keep an eye out the rest of the week to see when our live stream will start. We're going to take it all the way through. And yes, many more great voices coming on the show. Pilsy, where does this draft start for you? Now that we've covered all the prospects, you always hear that. Where does the draft really start? I mean, we'll get to Matthew Schaefer, but every single prospect analyst, I haven't seen a single one that hasn't put Matthew Schaefer first on their list. So with that said, does the draft start at 2, 3, 4? Where does it for you?
I'll word it this way, Ross. It's not necessarily what number the draft starts at. It's what team. The draft starts with the Utah Mammoth for me, because whether they decide to throw a curveball and go Brady Martin at 4, whether they decide to trade back and try to get Brady Martin later, or whether to decide to stick with the status quo and go with either like a Porter Martone, a James Haggins, a Caleb Denwyer, depending on who's available there, will change how the rest of the draft goes, in my opinion. So I'm going to say the draft starts with the Utah Mammoth.
Okay. I'm going to go with number 2. I'm curious to see, because San Jose is just so stacked with their prospect pool. Like, couldn't you see a world where they get an offer they can't refuse to get better now and move that second overall pick?
What kind of team would do that? That's that's where I'm not sure that happens.
Yeah, no clue.
Yeah,
we'll have to wait and see. That's the drama.
Maybe a team like Philly, a team that like has good prospect profile, but wants to really go with the punch now that they got Michkov, now that they got guys coming in, a prospect pipeline, I mean. So Philly maybe could be a team that does it, especially I feel like of that group, they're kind of the group that feels like they were closer than everybody expected in the last couple of years. So that could be a case where we see that.
Yeah, I like that. And you also have the whole intrigue too about what's everybody's list right behind you look like, because if you're trading with Philly and you're just trading back to 6 from 2, there's a chance you can get your second or third ranked player because of the volatility at the top of the class. So let's get to the top of the class. These guys, there's a reason why they're there. We'll explain why. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburnt at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with daily new promotions and fun ways to bet. I like betting on the home run prop profit boost. That's always good. You want dingers. More dingers is better. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events.
Hey, Pillsy, forget baseball for now. It's NHL Draft Week on FanDuel. True. And not only do they think the draft starts at 3, they're not even giving you odds for picks 1 and 2. They'll say, is it going to be a defenseman or a forward? It's minus 1,900 for a defenseman first overall, minus 1,900 for a forward at second overall. But at third overall, the favorite right now, Anton Frondell, minus 140, Caleb Denwyer at plus 270, Porter Martone at plus 400, Michael Misa at plus 750. Those are all available on FanDuel.
I went with Porter Martone, so I'm hoping that's what hits. And if you're new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
All right, Millsy, this is going to be fun. And we just told you about the draft odds over at FanDuel. And I'm a little shocked at the third overall pick odds. And that's because coming in at number 3 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings from the Brampton Steelheads, it's Porter Martone.
Whew, this is an exciting player, Ross. The captain of the Brampton Steelheads put up huge points this year in the OHL in 57 games, 37 goals, 61 assists for 98 points. And then he had 9 points in 6 playoff games. And he had some time in international play as well, 3 games in the World Juniors with Team Canada. And then this is a surprising one. You almost never see this. 2 games in the World Championship with Team Canada as well. So something a little bit unique with Porter Martone here.
Yeah, not a whole lot of guys at 17 going into their draft. You're 18, I guess. He's an early birthday, October 2006, was 18 all season. Could say they've been teammates with Nathan McKinnon and Sidney Crosby at that age. So even though he only played 2 games, the experience of getting to go over there and spend time and learn from some of the best players in the world, there's a lot more practice time in that tournament too. So it's not like you're playing an NHL schedule where, hey, we might have a morning skate, we might not. This was a great opportunity for Martone to learn. It also shows just how much Hockey Canada values this guy as a potential future consistent member of their national team, and for good reason. He's 6'3", 207 pounds, right shot, right wing. And even though he's like a power forward in a sense, he's not going to overpower you. He's not in a sense of like a Tom Wilson or a Brady Tkachuk, like not going to run you through the glass every single shift, but he uses his size so effectively in the offensive zone. And when you can protect the puck as well as Porter Martone does, to add the element of playmaking the way that he has, like there's not two players. I'll say two players in this draft that are better playmakers than Porter Martone.
And who are they?
I would probably say the guy we're about to get to next might have something to say about it. And Jake O'Brien would probably be my other choice, an assist per game in the O.
Okay, I like it.
I mean, Porter Martone had more than assists per game, but.
Yep. I like the way EP put it, Ross. He's more of a power playmaker than a power forward. I like they said shades of Mikko Rantanen as opposed to your Corey Perry's or Tkachuk brothers. Now, he does have that physical side to his game. Wheeler points out he battles hard, finishes checks, and even will drop the gloves from time to time. I like that he puts himself in a position to shoot, and then the D-man goes for the block, the goalie gets ready for it, and then he passes to set his teammate up for an easy goal. Like, he's just so good at that. The scout polls from EP gave him best vision, second best hands, second best offensive forward, and second highest ceiling. Like, this kid is a lot of fun, and he's going to turn a lot of heads. And any team that drafts him, he's going to go in the top 5 for me for sure. Any team that drafts him is going to be happy with him.
And it's interesting to see because early on in the year, there was a case to be made that he could be the first overall pick in this draft. And I think as the season went on, Schaefer and Misa had unbelievable seasons, even though Schaefer's was cut so short at the World Juniors, where Martone was his teammate. 2 draft eligible players there. Misa got snubbed, but we won't get into how Hockey Canada decided to make that roster for the World Juniors in Ottawa. But it's interesting to see the development in the industry chatter around him on elite prospects. One NHL executive says in November, this is early in the season, if he ends up going 1, Martone will be the lowest value first overall pick in decades. Like that's a bit of a pot shot there. And then by May, an NHL scout says that he's skilled, smart, can shoot the puck and make plays. He does, though, and I think this can get into a conversation about his skating. That has to improve for him to be a top 6 NHL player, to play alongside these great players so that he can set them up the way that he knows how.
Yeah, but for me, Ross, his skills are so good that the skating, I'm not really that worried about. Like he's just so smart. He's got a good shot. He's got great vision. He plays that physical style of game. I got him at 6'3", 208 pounds. Like, for me, you don't need to be an elite skater to be able to be successful when you have such high-end skills like Porter Martone does.
Yeah, and Elite Prospects does say he has the best vision in the class, second best hand, second best offensive forward, second highest ceiling, and the best fourth best shot in the draft. So he can beat you in so many different ways in the offensive zone, and that's why despite the skating not being as good as his peers around him in this part of the draft, he is still an exceptionally highly touted prospect who will be the top prospect on just about any organization that he ends up being picked to.
Pretty much, yeah. Unless Chicago or San Jose takes him, he's going to be the top guy.
Yeah, you don't even think in those organizations?
He's not better than Celebrini or Bedard.
Right, but I guess that's when you get into the debate whether they're prospects or not. But in terms like under 20, like I get that, and I agree that those two are on a completely different stratosphere. But with Porter Martone, you mentioned Connor Bedard, and if we do see a situation where Martone goes 3rd overall, which would be Chicago's pick, feels like it would be a great complementary player for Connor Bedard as well, because Bedard's got that shoot first mentality in the middle of the ice and can make plays. And the hockey IQ and the vision and the passing and the wall play from Porter Martone feels like it would match up, just a match made in heaven. Not quite as good as Ivan Demidov would have been last year, Chicago. But damn, it would be a really fun thing to watch those two play together.
Yeah, for me, if I'm Chicago, I'm taking Porter Martone. Like, unless Misa's there by some miracle, Porter Martone is the guy that makes most sense for me.
Okay, so how many Sens stars then? Because if the Sens were in the top 5, I think I know your answer. But now that the Sens clearly aren't in this range, what are your Sens stars? And give me what your Sens stars would be if the Senators had, let's say, Utah's pick at 4th overall.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 5-star player, but the Sens aren't going to get him, so 4.5. But he's a 5-star guy. This is the type of player you want in your team, you want in your organization. He's already got a pro frame. He's got so many skills. This kid's sick.
Yeah, he really is. And plus 400 on FanDuel as of Monday, June 23rd to go 3rd overall. So there's maybe some deception there, or maybe there's teams that value an Anton Frundell or a Caleb Denwaya more.
Every mock draft I've looked at has Frundell going there.
Frundell, okay. Well, we'll see. Time will tell. This Friday. For more on our NHL draft profiles, go check us out. Individual profiles are available on YouTube, and Porter Martone is 3rd overall with an average of 3.71. I didn't even read out the rankings. Holy smokes, we got too excited with his skills. Elite prospects, McKean's Hockey, Corey Pronman, all at 3rd overall. And then Locked On NHL prospects, Scott Wheeler, Craig Button, and Bob McKenzie, 4th overall on their rankings. Caveat, Bob McKenzie's final rankings are coming out tonight, so we will be very keen to see where Bob McKenzie, who gets his rankings directly from a poll of NHL scouts, where he has him. And if he moves up from 4, stays put, or I'd be shocked if he moves back. Porter Martone is 3rd on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. All right, coming in at number 2, Michael Misa. What a stud. Unbelievable season for Michael Misa, really showing that he is an elite talent all over the ice. And funny that he's number 2, because San Jose holds the 2nd overall pick. And just to jump into it, Elite Prospects has him shades of Macklin Celebrini.
Yeah, that tells you how good this is, Ross. I would say Michael Misa is an exceptional player, even so that he was the 8th exceptional status player in the CHL, joining some pretty high caliber names, and for a good reason. 65 games, 62 goals, almost a goal per game, 72 assists, 134 points in 65 games. So a 2-point per game guy. He also had 3 points in 4 playoff games, but he did get hurt there. He was the captain of the Saginaw Spirit, and this kid's been good ever since he got to the OHL, which confirmed or validated their decision to give him exceptional status. He's been above point per game pace for all 3 of his OHL seasons, including his rookie year.
To me, it's the amount of progression even beyond that, because we've seen exceptional status players before, and a lot of them end up going 1st overall. John Tavares comes to mind, Connor McDavid, Aaron Ekblad,
Bedard.
It's easy to get caught up in the hype around yourself. But when we spoke to Cam Robinson on our NHL mock draft, which you can check out on YouTube, he just says there's a quiet confidence about Michael Misa. And I think that's what you want in these superstar type players, that just, they know that they're better than everyone, but he doesn't play the game that way. His compete level's off the charts. He's the first guy in the offensive zone. He's creating loose pucks. He's getting his teammates involved. He is the all-around complete player of this draft. I don't think there's a forward even close to him. Respect to Porter Martone and Denwaya and O'Brien and Martin and all these great players who bring specific skill sets to the game. Each individual one does their own thing. Michael Misa is pretty much as good as all of those players' best attributes, but he has them all.
Yeah, agreed. And like we'll talk about the offense, but even defensively and off the puck, Ross, Scott Wheeler compliments his play off the puck, saying he finishes his checks. He's got good defensive instincts on interceptions and support. He led the league in shorthanded points. His vision is just incredible. He's reading plays before they happen. Like, it's the classic saying, he's playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. He's playing 3D chess while everybody else is playing checkers. He's just so smart, and he started this year off hot. How about a 14-game point streak with 28 points in that stretch? Like, this kid is just absolutely amazing, and the scouts agree. EP scout polls gave him best offensive forward, best transition forward, best two-way forward and the highest floor. Do you notice something here, Ross? He's the best offensive forward, he's the best transition forward, and he's the best two-way forward. So if you're looking for a forward that's the best, Michael Misa is your guy. And maybe I'm crazy, Ross. Michael Misa is my number one ranked player of this draft. Now we'll get to the guy that unanimously is number one from most scouts, but for me, there's no one with bigger, better potential than Michael Misa.
And a lot of the scouts are just a shade below you. Elite Prospects, McKean's Hockey, Locked On NHL Prospects, Corey Pronman, Scott Wheeler, and Craig Button, all at second overall. Bob McKenzie at 3, but again, that's his midterm rankings. Tonight, Bob McKenzie will be doing his final NHL draft rankings, and I'll be shocked if Misa is not 2 on that list. Dude, look at these point totals. They're ridiculous. Ridiculous. Almost a goal per game in the OHL. Now, Saginaw, wagon. Obviously, Zane Parekh on the back end producing a ton of offense for them. They struggled in the first round of the playoffs. Misa was no different, but they also were dealing with Misa having an injury, and he missed Game 5, the final game of that series against the Erie Otters. Misa had 3 points in 4 games and was minus 10. A lot of blowout losses in that series. But I don't think scouts are going to think twice about that. They're going to look at the body of work of the entirety of not only the season, but the way that he's come up through the ranks as always the top player, and just the mindset that you have to have when you're in that circumstance, the expectations that you know you have to be the best player on the ice for your team to win. I'm confident this guy is going to be an NHL star as soon as 2 years from now.
I think he'll be a star right away, Ross. This is a guy,
Wow.
I see him stepping into the NHL and having success. Not at the level of Macklin, Celebrini, or Bedard, but I don't think he's going to step into the NHL and you say, maybe you rushed him. And even a scout on EP said, this isn't a guy you move to college for his development. This is a guy you move to the pros, and I think he can play center in the NHL today.
Took the question right out of my mouth. So we'll see where Michael Misa ends up. I selfishly want to see him in San Jose. I just think he would be the perfect final piece of that core group of prospects with Celebrini and Smith, and even his teammate in the OHL, Igor Chernyshев, who had an unbelievable season with Saginaw as well coming over. So I don't know how much that would play into it. I don't think it needs to, but it's a nice bonus that he's got some familiarity with Chernyshев. You know how well Chernyshев did when he joined the Saginaw Spirit? And he can probably thank Michael Misa for this a little bit. He was an early second-round pick of the San Jose Sharks, I want to say last year, if not 2 years ago for them. I'm just pulling it up right now, but I wouldn't make you wait on something like this if it wasn't the most ridiculous stat I've seen in some time. Yeah, Chernyshев was last season's first overall pick of the second round. In 23 games with Saginaw, he had 55 points this past season.
Yeah.
So Michael Misa makes his teammates better. Not that
Big time.
Chernyshev's not good himself, but this guy is going to change the trajectory or enhance it of whatever team he goes to. Michael Misa is also 6'1", 185 pounds, and turned 18 in February. He's a left shot centerman with an average rank of 2.14. Michael Misa comes in at number 2 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. And we've made it to the top, coming in at number 1 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. Defenseman for the Erie Otters, Matthew Schaefer and Pilsy. Is there, in recent memory, a first overall pick as unanimous as Matthew Schaefer that has played fewer games in his draft season?
I don't think so, Ross. The only thing I could think of is maybe the COVID year when guys weren't really playing, but Matthew Schaefer only playing 17 games in the OHL with the Erie Otters. Now, that's due to injury. Unfortunately, he broke his collarbone at the World Juniors, where in 2 games he had 2 points. He was rolling. That team was a different team with and without him. But with the Erie Otters in 17 games, he made the most of it. You got to give him that. 7 goals, 15 assists, 22 points, and finished a plus 21. there's a reason this guy is the number one ranked player by every single of our draft prospect entities. 1-1-1-1-1 all over the board. He is an incredible all-around defenseman.
And he is one of the youngest players in this draft class as well. He's a September birthday, so he doesn't turn 18 until September 5th. The cutoff, I believe, is September 14th or 15th. So he is right up against it as a guy who was that close to being a 2026 eligible. And for that reason, it's even more impressive that he was named to Canada's World Junior team this season, and he was getting ready to play what looked to be a prominent role. Unfortunately, that's where the injury occurred at the Canadian Tire Center in the second game of the tournament. After he had a goal and an assist in the first game, played over 20 minutes. Like, this guy, it just seems like he's so elite defensively, offensively, reliable, plays all situations. He's the type of defenseman that you can build your future around.
And the New York Islanders are hoping to do just that, Ross, as it seems all signs are pointing to them keeping the pick and more likely than not picking Matthew Schaefer. And he's a great skater. He's got elite offensive instincts. His wrister, he's got a hard wrister that can beat goalies clean from the point. He's dominant in all three zones. He reads the play well. Ross, when we're covering elite guys like this, it's almost less exciting for me because, like, amazing at this, amazing at that, amazing at this, amazing at that, the best at this. Like, I don't really know what else to say about Matthew Schaefer. He's probably one of the guys I've looked into the least just because he's going to go first overall. He's great.
Yes, and we asked Cam Robinson on our NHL mock draft, as I mentioned, available everywhere you get your podcasts. It's just on YouTube, actually, but you can find all of our draft profiles wherever you get your podcast. That said, Matthew Schaefer, how would you compare him to the other top 5 drafted defensemen in recent history? Because every year since 2003, there's been a defenseman in the top 5, and Cam Robinson said he's right there with Jake Sanderson, ahead of others like Simon Nemec, like Owen Power, who was the first overall pick in that COVID draft you mentioned, and I looked it up. He played 26 games that year, so still more than Matthew Schaefer. And Owen Power had less points, albeit he was playing in Michigan, so in completely different situation too. He was one of the oldest players in that draft class, where Schaefer's one of the youngest, and I think that is the cherry on top of the excitement around Matthew Schaefer, is that as good as he is now, there's so much untapped potential and runway for him to get even better, even as early as this season, where you just hope he can play a full season, be healthy, and get back on the treadmill as fast as he was going. Because, like, his rookie year, it was decent as a young player in the OHL, 16 years old, played 56 games that year, 17 points, -2. It wasn't pop off the page type numbers, but the way he's learned to control a game, what an awesome attribute if you're a defenseman, being able to control the game to your pace, to the way you want to play, to make your forwards better with elite breakout passes. There's no holes in his game. He's 6'2", 183, so he's not going to be undersized either. He'll fill into that frame. And to top it all off, this guy's an incredible human being. You look at the NHL Scouting Combine as the most recent example of that, where he missed out on potential team meetings to go and visit a hospital, said that that was really important to him, and to be there for people who had lost a parent like he had. And he's dealt with a lot of tragedy in his life too. And it's super unfair and unfortunate that he's had to go through everything he has. But he talks about how that's kind of made him grow up a lot faster.
Yeah, super mature kid, well liked by pretty much anyone that you hear has talked to him or has dealt with him. I would say really the only knock on him or way he could be more sought after would be is if he was a right shot defenseman. Everything else, he checks all the boxes. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what decision he makes for where he's going to play next year. I assume that'll be done in collaboration with the New York Islanders or whatever team drafts him if he doesn't go first overall, which would be a huge shock. So the sky's the limit for Matthew Schaefer. And Do you have anything else to say for him? I'm at a loss of words for just how good he is. I would honestly say, Ross, I think Cam was right when comparing to other defensemen. I would say him and Sanderson are probably closest together of all those top 5 guys that have recently gone. And as much as it pains me to say as a Sens fan, Ross, Matthew Schaefer probably has the potential to be a better defenseman than Jake Sanderson.
And
which is saying something.
Is there a team that needs a top end talent like the New York Islanders? Them winning the draft lottery, I mean, couldn't have come at a better time from them as they move on from a previous regime. They bring in kind of a fresh outlook around the organization. And it feels like Matthew Schaefer, modern day NHL star defenseman, is just the perfect way. And watch them trade the pick now before the draft. And people are going to watch this after and be like, ha, that's my player now. Not the New York Islanders, but I think it would take a substantial offer to even have the Islanders consider this, because you can't trade for top tier NHL defensemen without paying a whole heck of a lot. And all they had to do was play the lottery ball game, and they got him.
Yeah, first overall picks just don't get moved. I don't know how you even start working on building a trade like that. The only thing that would make sense to me, Ross, is if they found a team that was interested in doing it. They found a package that worked, and they collaborated with other teams in between them to select James Haggins, the Long Island kid. That's the only way where I could see this making sense for the Islanders. And to have all those stars align is, I'm going to say, impossible. So it's not going to happen.
Yes, Matthew Schaefer, despite 17 games in the Ontario Hockey League, 2 games at the World Juniors, he broke his collarbone. I know we mentioned he got injured. The injury was a collarbone, and
also had mono. That was another thing you had to deal with.
Jesus, man.
Yeah.
This guy's due for some good luck, and clearly the skill and the way he plays will make him a star in the NHL. Elite Prospects Draft Guide calls him shades of Miro Heiskanen. The scout poll has him as the best 4-way mobility, the best offensive defenseman, the best puck-moving defenseman, the highest ceiling in the class, the second highest floor, the second best straight line skater, the third best neutral zone defender, and the 5th best motor. So he is this year's Mr. Metals, as we used to call Jake Sanderson. He's got all sorts of talent. The one thing, if you're a team, and this would not scare anybody away, but you just want to make sure that they grow in to become a shutdown type as well. If you're going to be out there 27, 28 minutes, you're going to be in your own zone at times. And that's the part of his game. Like if you had to make a statement, whether he's an offensive, defensive defenseman, he's offensive. Like he wants to move the puck. He wants to control the pace of play, and he wants to get going north. So that's just going to be a development path for him, is going to be getting to be that elite level defenseman that you could throw him out on the PK, that you can throw him out in every situation, because a coach is going to love having him on the ice. And we love having him at first overall with an average rank of first overall on our 2025 NHL Draft Rankings. We have completed 50 draft profiles. They are all available individually on YouTube. So if your team drafts a certain player, boom, you got a 5 to 10 minute video explaining our thoughts and scouts' thoughts more so on what the team is getting. All right, Pilsy, that was fun. And what a way to put a bow on it with Matthew Schaefer.
Yep, that we love doing the prospect profiles. The draft is one of our favorite times of year as Senators fans. Finally, Ross, we got a taste of the postseason. So the draft wasn't everything, and we don't have a top 10 pick this year, just 21st overall. But yeah, covering these guys and figuring out all these different players and trying to decide where it makes sense for them to go, doing our rankings, doing our mock drafts. It's just fascinating. I love drafts of all sorts, whether it's NHL drafts, fantasy drafts, anything. It's just so much fun.
The drafts are the best way to be prepared for the next 10 to 15 years of the league, learning how the players are at that stage and then how they develop into their future careers. Pillsy, at the start of the show, we talked how when Elliot Friedman says keep an eye on something, things happen quickly, and we've got a major trade. Trevor Zegras has been dealt to the Philadelphia Flyers, and the return, it's okay. Ryan Poehling, alongside a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick.
Yeah, you know what? I actually think that's pretty fair for both teams, and you may scoff at that, but keep in mind, Trevor Zegras has not been the player he used to be these last 2 seasons. 57 games this year, 32 points, 31 games the year before, 15 points. Sure, you had in the 60s 2 seasons before that, but I think Anaheim's going big game hunting, Ross, and they're clearing cap space here. Ryan Poehling only making $1.9 million. He did have 31 points, so kind of a more depth role player. But I really think they're going to try to make a big splash in free agency, and they've got the prospect pipeline that shows this team's going to have a good team in years to come. They have a high pick this year as well. Like, I think they're building towards something, and keep an eye on the Ducks now.
As I posted on my personal Twitter account, like it feels like Zegras and John Gibson have been in the trade rumor mill for years. And as Sens fans, we've seen what that can do to the psyche of a team. How long was Erik Karlsson rumored to be on the way out before it actually happened? And that whole time that people want to forget, where it was all rumors all the time, and that's got to weigh on the entire room too. So I think that once those two get moved, it sounds like John Gibson maybe finally could be on the move this offseason, and they've got clearly their heir apparent in goal and Lucas Dostal, that they can finally take a step forward in probably the weakest division in the NHL. There are obviously good teams in every division, but the Pacific Division feels like if you're a team towards the bottom, you feel like, hey, I can maybe push and get into a playoff spot. The top 3 has been the same. We know with Edmonton playing LA for a number of years, and then Vegas, the class of that division. Everybody else, it's a free-for-all for 4th in the division. And because you play your own division more, you probably get a little bit of a push into a potential wild card situation. And that has to be the Anaheim Ducks goal this upcoming year. So the first of many moves this week, draft week here, and we'll be covering it all on Locked On Senators all week long into the weekend with our live stream. We booked 3 guests while we were on this show, so you have to stay tuned and wait to see who they are. And I cannot wait. My favorite time of year, maybe outside of playoffs, but draft season is here. And let us know in the comments if there's any thoughts you have on what would make it a successful week for the Ottawa Senators. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.